a press conference that John Boehner gave on Capitol Hill where he just, as usual, lies, right? And we keep wondering here at the Young Turks, why doesn't anyone call him on the lie? And not by standing up and saying, you lie, like Joe Wilson, right? But by asking a question that demonstrates that lie. Well, guess what? Jorge Ramos did just that. And it's a great, great moment in journalism. So Jorge Ramos is an anchor at Fusion. He's which is, I guess, mostly a bilingual network. And Jorge Ramos has a reputation for being tough with people. And sometimes that reputation is just like you don't really get to the truth, but you're kind of a dick to people. Here's the thing. When you're a good journalist, you're supposed to irritate people. You're supposed to make the establishment uneasy. You're supposed to challenge them. You're supposed to be a dick. But it's in the effort of getting to the truth. And that's exactly what Jorge Ramos does here. John Boehner is talking about immigration reform, or Jorge Ramos makes him talk about immigration reform, and the follow-up questions are priceless.
We came here to ask you, why are you blocking immigration reform? It's been almost a year since the Senate passed. Yes, you're
blocking?
Yeah, you could bring it to a vote and you haven't. It's been almost a year since the Senate.
Well, the issue of immigration reform is an issue that I've talked about for 18 months. But the president has responsibility here as well. And when he continues to ignore Obamacare, his own law, 38 unilateral delays, he reduces the confidence of the American people in his willingness to implement an immigration law the way we would pass it. So the president has to rebuild this trust if we're going to be able to do this.
What Obamacare has to do with the immigration reform. The Senate passed it almost a year ago, and you haven't moved on that.
I just gave you.
People are questioning your leadership and your vision on that.
I just gave you an answer. There's nobody more interested in fixing this problem than I am.
But you can do it.
But the president. Well, listen.
You can do it, Mr. Speaker. You can do it, and you really haven't done it.
I appreciate your opinion. Thank you.
Come on. You want to have Jorge Ramos over to your house for Memorial Day weekend, don't you? He's awesome, except he'd be like, you told me that there would be burgers. I see here that there are only hot dogs. You'd be like, look, nobody likes burgers more than I do. Like, you're the owner of the house. You go buy more burgers. There are supermarkets sell. I'm doing like a half accent because I don't want to be a total dick. So God bless him. Because, of course, he's completely right. Like John Boehner, these guys are so unpleasant. They're so deliberately deceitful. He just flows into a question about why you haven't acted on immigration reform by saying because Obama implemented changes to the Affordable Care Act, his own law. And he sets up a link that says, therefore, we don't have the trust that he wouldn't do the same to immigration reform. I mean, it's just flat out horseshit. He's the Speaker of the House. The Senate has passed it. He could vote on it. It might lose, but he could make sure they voted on it. And then if they voted on it and it lost, you at least wouldn't be able to ask John Boehner how the hell that happened. And of course, what Jorge Ramos knows, and what John Boehner presumably knows Jorge Ramos knows, is that last month, John Boehner assured the members of his caucus that he wouldn't press the issue on immigration reform because they don't want to. And that's the answer to the question. Why haven't you acted on the Senate's version of immigration reform? The answer is the Republicans in my caucus won't vote for it because they don't want it. That's the answer. And Republicans theoretically should be able to say loudly and proudly, I don't want immigration reform. We don't want any part of it. We're voting against it. Because that's the truth. And most of the Republicans, of course, in the Senate. So, and by the way, Jorge Ramos also completely tough on the other side when need be. When talking to Harry Reid about immigration and saying that, Reid wants the Senate to take action, Ramos said to him, hey, he's deported, the numbers are staggering, the number that Obama has deported, I think more than 2 million people, more than Bush. He said he's disrupted thousands and thousands of families. Why don't you pressure Obama on that? Like, you could make a difference right now and back off on the deportations. And if you're going to be the president and talk about the need for immigration reform, that's a totally valid question to ask. Jorge Ramos, Turk of the Day, an award I don't think we have, but we should.